The mentality is, you know what? Bring us your child, stay out of it. We will condition your child to do what we want. They're not educating the whole child. They're not educating all children.
Like David Guggenheim, I didn't think too much about public schools until it was time for my children to go to school. And my intention was to seek a quality public school that my children can walk to. And so I found PS 15 a few blocks away from my house. I was excited to contribute to my community school. But I was astonished to see that the privatizers also had their eye on our school. And in the process of becoming involved in my school, I learned a lot about what the privatizers' agenda is for public schools in our country.
I've experienced a double whammy with charter school issue, the charter school movement, in that even in my daughter's elementary school, we've been victimized to co-locate with a charter school. As a neighborhood parent, I can't understand why in my community with a triple-rated elementary school, with a school that is 95% successful with all the elementary schools citywide, why we have to co-locate with a charter school.
Co-location means eviction. Remember that. Doesn't mean that a guest has come to dinner. Doesn't mean sharing. It means displacement. Whatever, and it also means conflict.
In Harlem, New York, Public School 241's kindergarten, first, and second grade students are now learning in classrooms that were created in their building's basement, so that Harlem Success Academy Charter School, which was featured in Waiting for Superman, could expand their enrollment.
We currently co-locate with 2 charters, not even just 1. We were first co-located with Opportunity Charter School, and Eva came in, and everything is falling apart. Opportunity Charter doesn't get along with them. We're not getting along with them. Our kids have lost so much. We've lost computer lab, we've lost science labs, we've lost our art studio, and most recently, our children are, yes, in the basement, in a sub-level basement that has been deemed not safe to be inhabited by children. And our children are there, and we were told under no circumstance was it an option. We were given an option of either having a first floor space or a sub-level space, and when we chose, guess what, the first floor space, we were like, no, you're going to take the sub-level. And we were told that we didn't have a choice, so we were just going to have to deal with it.
When I see charter schools and May Bloomberg and Joe Klein and everybody smiling up on one side of the fence, and then I see all the little black kids and the Latino kids sitting up on the other side of the fence with their parents, all that reminds me of is Brown versus the Board of Education. Like, what was the point of that case if we're back to doing it now in the 20th century? Because we're basically segregating. Everybody is not, they're telling us, you know, that the law was you're equal but separate. You can't be equal, you're equal but separate. And that's what's happened now. Only difference is we're no longer equal and we are being separated. We're being separated by a minority class and the class that's minority, but they're middle class minority. And it shouldn't be that way.
What you gotta do is think about it. This is another way where they turn us and divide us.
This is something they want. They want to segregate a community. And I see them every day that I get up and wake up and come outside to take my child to school. I see the segregation in this community alone. And they don't even know the damage they continue to put on this community.
In a nutshell, the Harlem Children's Zone is a petty bourgeois cloning factory for the world of corporate work. It is not a center that enhances the black community development, enhances the radical tradition of the Harlem community. That gets marginalized, that gets disappeared, that gets kicked to the curb.
A handful of billionaires have been allowed to subvert our democracy by feeding the public distortions and lies, but by making their own contributions to cash-strapped school systems dependent on giving control over our schools to their favorite educrats or politicians.
The right, in all of its variations, have taken over the language of the civil rights movement, the language of
the human rights movement, the language of, particularly of the Black liberation movement in the United States, to push their own concepts of schooling, not education.
What the so-called reformers will not openly tell you is that their desire to push charter schools is not about putting children first, but rather it's about accessing what even they refer to as the largely untapped K-12 public education market.
They are doing everything they can to undermine the health and stability of our neighborhood public schools so they can privatize and put charter schools in their place.
This week, the Independent Budget Office confirmed what we have been saying for years now, that there is a deliberate policy to concentrate high-need students, students with special needs, English language learners, students who are homeless, students who are living in poverty, to concentrate them in schools in such high numbers that those schools find it more and more impossible to serve all their needs.
Corporate reformers claim that a key way to improve education for our children is to close schools they have labeled as failing. They say that these schools, including some that have served communities for over 100 years, must be shuttered in order to provide their communities with more viable options. In many cases, those options are charter schools.
Our state legislature changed the rules of the game in our accountability system, and they changed what the definition of a failing school was so that they could take over 107 of 122 schools. They chartered many of those schools. There were no public hearings because we weren't there. The public was gone. There were no public hearings. We had no choice in this. Charter schools are supposed to be about school choice, and there really is no choice in New Orleans.
The inconvenient truth behind school closings and the proliferation of charter schools is that they are not solutions at all. Rather, they are part of a highly charged political agenda that fails to put our children first.
From experience of being in a school that's supposed to be phased out, it is not a good one. The morale of the students is hit hard. Some of the students start to feel that they're not good enough to be in school.
Closing schools seems to be more important than the improvement of our youth.
When the DOE makes decisions behind our backs, it's the students that get hurt the most.
Taking away our school is like taking a person off for life support. You will cut it off for lifeline.
We lost our debate club, our chess team, our choir, our robotics club, and even our partnership with Citigroup that actually mentored and gave internships at headquarters to millions of students, which I was a part of. Majority of these programs were safe spots and gave students the chance to hang out in school and learn. By cutting these programs, most of the students now go out to the streets.
If the DOE has the heart to criticize Robeson and all these other schools, they should have the heart to help us. You can't expect a masterpiece without any art supplies. There are success stories at Robeson, and you are looking at one right now.
It's the DOE's fault that we're in this situation right now. The DOE has us using our school as a place to shove students in who have sadly been pushed out of their schools. This has been a key method into making Kennedy a low-performing high school year after year. Where will future English language learners and special needs students go if John F. Kennedy High School no longer exists?
We're going around in this little hamster ball, and Bloomberg, the state senate, Governor Cuomo, they're just looking down and just watching this infighting. And as long as it stays with us, I feel like there's satisfaction. We really want to take this to Bloomberg. We really want to take this to our leaders and say enough is enough. Our children are suffering, we are suffering, and this is just no longer acceptable.
We have neighborhoods in our cities and across the nation that have been under-resourced, have been devalued for decades. And for some reason or other, the schools are supposed to fix all that and change that.
When you really get right down to it, the so-called reformers, their attacks on teachers' unions, what it's really saying is that teachers, because they have tenure, have a job for life. And and that therefore there's no accountability to ensure that they're effective teachers.
Is tenure, something that has absolutely no educational value for children.
The truth is, however, educators nor their unions make decisions about tenure. Educational leaders make decisions about tenure. And further, educational leaders absolutely have the ability to fire a teacher at any point in his or her career.
If the teacher is doing a bad job, I know how to get rid of that teacher as a good principal.
Tenure and seniority rights are nothing more than due process and job protections that all workers should have. Tenure and seniority rights are what protects educators like us, so that we can advocate with parents for their children.
I like to say first they came for the auto workers, because in fact if you look at that whole process in which auto workers are targeted for simply having job security.
Over the last 30 years, there has been an ideological offensive against unionized workers. This has resulted in the number of unionized workers in our country dramatically decreasing, represented by the graph's red line. This correlates with decreasing middle-class incomes, represented by the graph's blue line. Since 1980, the number of people living in poverty has risen to 44 million, and the disproportionate distribution of wealth has nearly doubled. This kind of spike in income disparity has not been seen since the late 1920s.
Now, school teachers are being targeted. Why should they have job security? Why should they have tenure? Why should they have the promise of financial security or even just job security?
Let's make this very simple. There's no evidence that a unionized workforce negatively impacts students or student achievement. And in fact, quite the opposite is true. Countries that have highly successful education systems are overwhelmingly unionized.
Waiting for Superman touted Finland as an exemplar in education. The film, however, failed to explore the reason for Finland's great success. In 2006, Finland's reading and math scores ranked number 2 in the world. Today, the country is ranked number 1. The inconvenient truth is that 98% of Finland's teachers are unionized. So contrary to what Guggenheim and the corporate reformers would have us believe, a unionized workforce does not negatively impact academic achievement. Finland's powerful unions have worked to keep class sizes low and ensure that high-stakes tests are not driving teaching and learning. Finland's success has been made possible because the country values the work of educators and listens to their voices. In the United States, Virginia, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and South Carolina do not allow collective bargaining for educators and have effectively banned teacher unions. Not surprisingly, these states' SAT and ACT scores rank 44th, 47th, 48th, 49th, and 50th respectively.